Greetings aspirants, welcome to Narayana IAS Daily News Analysis. We have picked up few important articles from Daily Hindu and Indian Express for your preparation. Articles for today's analysis are the first one, Apple cyber attack alert, opposition corners government. This is the first one. And the second one, in the Pegasus battle, the fight for surveillance reform. These two together we have picked up in cyber security and internal security background. And the second important article, the Gagayaan for Seas inside India's deep ocean mission. This is the second important article. Akaura Agartala link to be inaugurated virtually by Prime Minister Modi and Sheikh Hasina. So this is the third important article we have picked up from Hindu only. And stock taking climate finance. This is the fourth article we have picked up. So there are two important mains articles and two prelims articles, specific prelims articles in the today's analysis. Stay tuned until the last slide because we'll be discussing practice preliminary questions and practice mains questions. So I'll take up the first article in cyber security background, Apple cyber attack alert and Pegasus battle, the fight for surveillance reform. To set the context, cyber security is a relevant topic for UPSC examination in GS3 internal security. It is also important because there is a PYQ in this particular arena in 2022. See the question, what are the different elements of cyber security? Keeping in view the challenges in cyber security, examine to which extent India has successfully developed a comprehensive national cyber security strategy. So in this context, this article is very important. As I said, two important articles of the newspaper today, Apple alerts to many people in India, especially opposition leaders, which is specifically saying targets by state-sponsored attackers. And the same relevant background, Pegasus project revelations. Pegasus project revealed that at least 300 Indians had their cell phones hacked using a spyware called Pegasus. And it is done by Israel-based NSO group. It is revealed by Amnesty International's security lab. And it has confirmed this with the forensic analysis in at least 10 cases. So what in this context, what government is doing in India specifically, the concerned nodal agency to respond is CERTIN. So Computer Emergency Response Team India remained silent in this background. And also there is legislative inaction and judiciary involvement. Judiciary has constituted a technical committee to investigate into the matter where we are waiting for the findings. So this is the context. This is the context in the newspaper and the context was set for the relevance of UPSC examination. So this term is very important, surveillance. The surveillance industry is becoming increasingly accessible and intrusive, endangering the right to privacy and democratic ideals in India. So surveillance, state-sponsored surveillance. There has to be a striking balance between national security and fundamental rights of citizens. So surveillance should be in a way that it should not compromise the security and it should not also compromise the fundamental rights of citizens, specifically right to privacy as mentioned in surveillance reforms. So all this is happening because of the digital age, the information age, and the usage of more electronic devices. In this background, we'll try to understand What exactly is cyber security? What exactly is cyber security? Cyber space means the virtual environment which we have created through computers, networks, and devices. We have created a space there, that is the virtual environment we are talking about, right? Cyber security refers to practice of protecting computer systems, networks, digital data from theft, damage, or unauthorized access. So life is becoming more of virtual in nature. We are keeping our data more in our computer. So the question of security arises. With the increasing dependence on digital technologies, right? All the domains nowadays, politics, all the institutions, politics, economy, all the institutions are increasingly becoming dependent on digital technologies. Cyber security has become critical aspect of national security. Not only national security, it has become critical aspect of economic stability and individual privacy. As I said just before, it has to maintain a striking balance between that fundamental rights and national security. So coming up with another important terminology, state-sponsored attacks. So increasingly we are seeing state-sponsored attacks in the world in the present digital age. State-sponsored attacks are orchestrated and executed by governments or state entities to achieve specific objectives, which may include espionage, data theft, disruption of critical infrastructure. So, infrastructure is very important. We are talking about digital infrastructure. When all our data is digitally present, and this digital infrastructure needs security, right? Especially the critical infrastructure. What is critical infrastructure? I will be defining that in the next slide, right? These attacks are typically well-funded, sophisticated, and politically motivated. They pose significant threats to the targeted nations, especially the nations which are democratic. So, as I said, what is critical infrastructure? So we have a definition here from National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center, according to which the critical infrastructure is where it is involving power and energy, banking, financial services, insurance, telecom, transport, government strategic, and public enterprises. So all this infrastructure has the capability to disrupt way of life in a particular country. So we are considering it as a critical infrastructure. So if you take infrastructure, if you take digital infrastructure as a circle, and in this the core is critical infrastructure. So it is important that we protect our critical infrastructure in increasingly digital age. So the escalating cyber threat landscape, if you see, there are gray zone operations. What are gray zone operations? The realm of the cyber warfare, especially the cyber attacks, is expanded beyond the traditional concepts of conflicts, beyond the traditional theaters. The convergence of emerging technologies and hybrid or dual usages are posing formidable challenges for us. So as I said, it is important that this gray area is an area between war and peace, right? War and peace. It is an area between war and peace. This is what we are calling it as gray zone operations. As I said, attacks on critical systems which can threaten the sustainability of economy or maybe nations' independent ideals, democratic ideals, and their constitutional values. So attacking on critical systems is very important that we need to protect. As a nation, we should have our own comprehensive strategy so that we protect our digital infrastructure, especially the critical infrastructure, from gray zone warfare tactics. So pervasive nature of cyber threats. As I said, the expanding nature, the comprehensive nature of these cyber threats often overshadowed by discussions of AI-driven military invasions and hybrid warfare. It is encompassing to operate in multiple fronts, right? So unlike the traditional front, now we have multiple fronts from which we need to protect ourselves with a comprehensive strategy. So if you see, what are the challenges in the present scenario, what India is facing, what are the different challenges India is having. One, the structural challenges. The second one, administrative challenges. The third one, procedural limitations. And the fourth one, human resource challenges. These are the major challenges one need to understand. Coming from the down, human resource challenges. So increasingly digital age. More people are using mobile devices. More people are using electronic devices without a user manual. They don't know how to use it. They don't know how to protect their data from cyber theft or cyber attacks, but still they are using these devices. There is lack of awareness. So we need human resources who spread awareness among these people. The widespread ignorance about device security and online transactions hampers our cyber security efforts. And procedural limitations, the law, the policy, the scope we have in India, the local law enforcement, especially in a country like India where federalism is in place, where the states, especially the local enforcement agencies, lack their skill, lack their awareness on this cyber security and cyber crime and specific laws. So there is limitation, right, to protect our systems. And there are administrative hurdles. India lacks a national level architecture for cyber security. And it also lacks periodic security audits and appointment of licensing officers in states so that we can have a cooperative and healthy competitive federalism. As of now, what we have is ad hoc mechanism. What we have as of now is ad hoc mechanism. Apart from this, we have structural challenges. The structural challenges are geographical boundaries do not constrain cyber threats. You know this. And the lack of uniformity in internet access devices complicates our security efforts, right? The structural challenges, the urban and rural divide specifically. These are the basic fundamental challenges our cyber security infrastructure is facing in India. So if you see the statutory provisions in India, we have one important law, IT Act, specifically section 66F, which deals with cyber terrorism and denial of access, unauthorized access, and the introduction of computer contaminants with stringent penalties. So this is the place where we are trying to protect, we are trying to define what is a cyber threat. So Information Technology Act is the foundation on which we are building our comprehensive infrastructure to protect our cyber systems, right? National Cyber Security Policy 2013 is a policy which is important for protection of our critical infrastructure. A student should be able to pick up at least 4 to 5 points from the policy very specifically. And the nodal agency for this is certain Computer Emergency Response Team under MITI, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, to oversee the administration of the specific IT Act. So apart from which, we have a Cyber Surakshit Bharat initiative which enhances the awareness which is lagging, which I said just before. And Cyber Crisis Management Plan is a plan to manage the crisis, unforeseen crisis in case of any cyber terrorism or cyber warfare. And the National Cyber Coordination Center, which is promoting situational awareness. If there is any cyber threat, if there is any cyber attack, they will take up that case. They will try to post and try to bring awareness among these ignorant people. So Cyber Swachhata Kendra is a place where a person can clean their devices from viruses and malware. And the last but not least, ISEA, Information Security Education and Awareness Project. It is similar to that of Cyber Surakshit Bharat initiative, where this project will create more human resources and through training and bring awareness among the populace and laymen specifically. This is the infrastructure we have right now. This is the comprehensive strategy we have as of now. So this is what I have discussed: a law, a policy, a nodal agency, and the initiatives and the committees to bring awareness, to create human resources, and to give plans and execute those plans. So this is very important for every single individual, every single aspirant to learn about all these in the perspective of prelims and mains examination. So if you take up world scenario, it is not possible that I discuss the comprehensive strategies of the countries, but I can discuss the laws which are present in these developed countries, which are ideal or model laws for developing nation like India. One such is United States of America, where we have Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, Cyber Security Information Sharing Act, whereas if you go to European Union, we have GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. So these are the important legal frameworks which we have in this modern world to protect our cyber systems and cyber physical systems further. So United Nations and international agreements, if you see, United Nations has established a GGE, group of government experts to develop norms, rules, protocols, and principles for responsible state behavior. Right? So today, as I said in the article, the opposition is accusing the position. So in this background, we need an international guideline. We need international protocols to take waters from. So there is also Budapest Convention on Cybercrime, an international treaty which will give us more waters to develop our comprehensive strategy. So in this background, I have come up with a prelims practice question. I am trying to see the aspirants' knowledge on the terminologies in this cyber security arena. The first one is Trojan horse. The second one is social engineering. The third one is patch. The fourth one is zero-day vulnerability. If you see Trojan horse, what is Trojan horse? A malware that disguises itself as a legitimate program or file to trick users into installing it. Whereas social engineering, what is social engineering? It is a form of manipulation used to deceive individuals into divulging confidential information. It is the ability of the individual to persuade or impersonate. Similarly, what is patch? Patch is a piece of code or update designed to fix a vulnerability or improve the security of the software application. Once the software application is released into the market, there is a vulnerability which is seen by the developer, and he came up with a patch so that that vulnerability is not exposed to. But if any hacker is getting into that vulnerability even before the patch is getting released, that is called zero-day vulnerability. So the answer is C. Students should keep observing newspapers for such terminologies and standard single line definitions. Don't dwell so much into that. Don't take deeper currents from those terminologies, right? And I'm here coming up with a practice mains question from this particular article, which is, to what extent the intrusion of cyber threats into the daily lives of the citizens, increasing the complexity of maintaining internal security? And what are the policy gaps in India's efforts to combat these cyber threats? So one should be able to see the article, present logically the argument. Remember, for every mains question, you should be able to structurally dissect the question into two, identifying the directive and identifying the keyword. Not just identifying the keyword, it is important that you write answer in the direction asked for. So don't try to present everything you know, try to present what is important in the direction which the question is asking. So this is about this cyber security and the articles regarding. We are moving into the next article. Coming to the next important article, stock taking climate finance, a case of circles in red ink. So it is very important for your UPSC prelims and mains perspective both. The topic of relevance is climate financing. For UPSC syllabus, it is important for GS3, environment and conventions. We also have a previous year question in this particular arena, which is going like, describe the major outcomes of 26th session of Conference of Parties to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. What are the commitments made by India in this conference. So this is the article. As I said, the context is climate finance, which is playing a critical role in maintaining trust in international climate negotiations, particularly for developing countries, as it is likely to be central at upcoming COP28. COP28, which is going to happen in Dubai in 2023. It is going to be one of the important part of negotiations, climate finance. We'll try to understand what it is. What is climate finance? The first question. So you know what is climate change, right? The financial resources which are allocated to help low and middle income countries to mitigate and adapt to climate change, right? This is the financial resources which are allocated to help these countries. This includes investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, climate smart agriculture, and other climate friendly technologies, climate sensitive technologies. So this is not specific to one single sector. It can be for primary sector, secondary sector, or tertiary sector. So evolution of climate finance, if you see, in 1992, UNFCCC came up with a principle called CBDRRC, common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. So what we're talking about, differentiated responsibilities between developed countries and low and middle income countries. Especially in our scenario, it is developing countries. So the responsibility is common, but different responsibilities are there for both. So it is more of that the developed countries should contribute more to the finance and should contribute more as part of financial resources, and it is the duty of these developed countries to sustain the climate more, right? So this is the principle we are talking about, right? The next one, in 2009, in evolution, Copenhagen Climate Conference, it developed countries committed to mobilize $100 billion per year in climate finance by 2020. This is what they have committed in 2009. But we have a major change in 2015, the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement, this agreement reinforces the commitment of developed countries to provide climate finance to developing nations, especially like India, Brazil, etc. What is the role of Paris Agreement in climate finance? There is a clear-cut goal mentioned that 100 billion per year in climate finance. And there are new mechanisms, new financial mechanism which emerged, which is GCF and Adaptation Fund. I'll be discussing about these funds in the next slides. Improved transparency and accountability, which brought comprehensive framework for monitoring and reporting climate finance. And it is very important to note that this clause is mandatory. Developed countries are mandated to provide financial resources to developing countries. You need to understand everyone should take responsibility. There are no boundaries for climate. One should recognize that. Challenges in climate financing. The first challenge, especially developing countries like India is facing, that discrepancies and burden sharing. Developed countries are not ready to take the shoulder, right? Inadequate contribution is one such major problem. Take the example of United States of America. It only contributed 5% of its fair share in 2020. And substantial financing needs, as you know that developing countries came up with their NDCs, nationally determined contribution, for which they need financial resources, right? And it is substantial amount which is required, and it is important that developed countries contribute. And this is important for transition. Countries like India need financial support to transition to cleaner energy systems in a way that is fair and equitable. So the discrepancies and the burden sharing is important to be noted. And unclear mobilization criteria, it is important that these financial resources has to be mobilized as said in Paris Agreement but in Paris Agreement itself, there is vagueness. There is no clear-cut criteria for funding access. It is not the agenda to just create funds. It is the agenda to create access and further bring change at the ground. So there is lack of specification in the Paris Agreement itself. It is going to become the central point in Dubai discussions, which I said just before. And absence of any criteria. Neither UNFCCC nor Paris Agreement mentioned any specific criteria for climate finance. Funding is often secured through replenishment process. So the role of funding mechanisms, especially GEF and GCF, there are limitations for this. And there is no clarity on contributions and clarity on access. Developed countries contribute to the GCF, but there is no clarity on what qualifies as international public climate finance. And again, as I said, the replenishment cycles to mobilize climate finance in funding mechanisms like GEF and GCF are to be noted as the challenges. So how do we address these challenges of climate finance? One important thing, developed countries should take up the responsibility, should shoulder the responsibility and contribute for 100 billion per year in climate finance to developing countries every single year without lapse. The second important thing, climate finance providers need to make it easier for developing countries to access, not just creating fund. As I said again, it has to provide a clear-cut mechanism to access and use further. And developing countries, another perspective, another quotient one need to keep in mind, developing countries, they themselves should develop climate finance, not just being dependent on developed countries forever. And apart from that, we have multilateral institutions who has to step into the scenario and contribute for the climate finance, which are World Bank and International Monetary Fund. They should help in mobilizing this climate finance. So last but not least, people consider that it is a responsibility of the government. It's not just the responsibility of the government. Climate change is not the responsibility of just the nations. Climate change is not just the responsibility of market. Climate change is not just the responsibility of every single individual, right? It is a wholesome responsibility. All the institutions from individual micro level to macro level, every individual, every institution should take up responsibilities. Even the private sector should be incentivized for their climate sensitivity. And I'm taking up two important climate funds. One is Green Climate Fund and Global Environment Facility. If you take up these two, one is established by UNFCCC, the other one is Multilateral Funding Mechanism for Environment. This is climate specific, GCF is climate change specific, whereas Global Environment Facility is also including biodiversity, land degradation, and international waters and other issues, right? So it is governed by developed and developing countries. These both funds are developed in partnership and governed by these two people, developed and developing countries. This is there. The problem is consensus. Consensus is the problem at present scenario. So which we are trying to reach in upcoming climate change negotiations. So international framework which is important for that is UNFCCC, and the international framework which is important for GEF is different environmental conventions which we already have. And the Green Climate Fund focuses more on renewable energy projects, reforestation, climate resilient infrastructure, etc. Whereas GEF will majorly focus us on biodiversity and conservation, ecosystem protection, and sustainable development. So as I said, funding sources are both public and private from developed countries, whereas funding sources here are both from public and private in developed and developing countries, both. So these are the funding mechanisms we have as of now. So it is important that we develop a comprehensive funding mechanism, a comprehensive fund, a clear-cut strategy to mitigate and adapt to the new scenarios climate is presenting to us. So what India is committed to in climate? India is having 5 ambitious climate goals, right? Especially in COP26, it had declared in Glasgow in 2021, it is committed to Panchamrit, the 5 important commitments, which are the first one, it is going to commit 500 gigawatt by 2030 from non-fossil fuel energy. And the second important target is to meet 50% of India's energy requirements from renewable energy resources by 2030, which means that let us consider 1000 gigawatt is what we are projecting to 2030, out of which 50% has to be from renewable energy. And the third important target is projected carbon emissions by 1 million tons by 2030, between now and 2030. And the fourth important ambitious target, India is having to reduce carbon intensity in GDP by 45% by 2030. And last one is to achieve net zero emissions by 2070. These Panchamrit targets are very important to present in mains examinations in climate change questions when someone asks about what India is looking at, what India is foreseeing in this particular arena of climate change and sustainable development. So Panchamrit is an ambitious target India has kept itself for the world cause. So in this background, it is very important you are an aspirant should understand importance of the climate finance. These are ambitious targets. To reach these ambitious targets, one need a resounding finance. One need a reinforcing finance. One need strong financial resources to reach these ambitious targets. In this background, I am trying to come up with one prelims practice question and one mains practice question. The mains practice question goes like this. Discuss the challenges and opportunities in climate financing and highlight the role of Panchamrit in India's climate finance strategy. This is the main specific question. Try to keep in mind what is happening at the international arena, what India is committed to, what challenges we are facing, and try to present your answer logically. If you take up the prelims practice question, there are statements which are given. Consider the following statements with respect to Panchamrit of India's INDC. These are the 4 statements we're talking about. Increase India's non-fossil fuel energy capacity by 500 gigawatt by 2030. Meet 50% of India's energy requirements from renewable energy resources by 2030. Just before I said, reduce India's carbon intensity of its GDP by 45% by 2050, achieve net zero emissions by 2050, 2070. So I spoke about it just before. So the answer is B. Only 2 statements are right. So you have to keep in mind the elimination strategy lost its relevance from previous year UPSC examination, and you should be ready for such type of questioning. The next important article I'm taking up for analysis is a Gaganyaan for seas inside India's deep ocean mission. The relevance for UPSC is Blue Economy, Samudrayan Mission, Matsya 6000. In mains, GS3 paper, Science and Technology, and it is also important for Indian economy part. So setting the context, we have Samudrayan. So we know Gaganyaan, we're talking about Samudrayan. It was initiated in 2021 by Ministry of Earth Sciences. Remember, these are important for preliminary examination. Which ministry, right? So this is the one. The objective is to create a submarine that can dive to the depth of 6,000 meters in the ocean. Deep Ocean Mission is one of the 9 missions under Prime Minister Science and Technology and Innovation Advisory Council. This is one of the important mission, right? So India is not the first country to dive deep. We already have United States of America, Russia, China, France, Japan, which had already done successful missions in this deep ocean crew area. So we have DOM, which is supporting the blue economy, priority area, blue trade, and blue manufacturing in India. Matsya 6000 is the submersible vehicle which is developed indigenously, right? Atmanirbhar Bharat, indigenously under this particular mission. So the mission has 6 important pillars. The first one is to develop technologies for deep sea mining and manned submersible vehicle, Matsya 6000. As I said, the aim is to take 3 people to the depth of 6,000 meters in ocean and operational endurance of 12 hours. Whereas if you see, it should be extendable in the times of emergency for 96 hours. So it is certified for human rated operations at up to 500 meter water depths as of now, and it is constructed using a titanium alloy. It is engineered to withstand pressure of 6,000 bar. So this is very important. These are factual in nature and important for preliminary perspective. As I said, there are 6 pillars. The first pillar, development of technologies. These technologies, especially mining. The International Seabed Authority has allocated India 75,000 square kilometer, especially in central Indian Ocean, and additional 10,000 square kilometers at 26 degrees south to India for this. So NIOT has successfully conducted deep sea locomotion trials on the seabed at a depth of 5,270 meters using underwater mining system, which is Varaha. As I said, it is factual in nature and important for your preliminary examination, right? Polymetallic nodules are found approximately in 5,000 meters deep, which contain precious metals like copper, manganese, nickel, iron, cobalt. Understand, any country which has the ability to convert its resources and which has the ability to access its resources and make finished products with the technology, it is called as developed country normally. So our country is trying to become developed country. Our country is trying to become superpower. So it is going to be in our interest that we use resources in a better way, right? So not only polymetallic nodules, polymetallic sulfides also occur around 3000 meter in the central Indian Ocean. In this arena only I spoke that it is very important for Indian economy. It is going to contribute large to the Indian industry and expand the output of the industry. So the other pillars are development of climate ocean advisory services and technological innovations to explore deep sea biodiversity, deep ocean survey and exploration, right? As I said, it aimed to identify potential sites of multi-metal hydrothermal sulfides mineralization along the Indian Ocean mid-oceanic ridges. So the fifth one is harnessing energy and fresh water from the ocean. And the sixth one is establishing an advanced marine station for ocean biology. So which will create a huge human resources for new opportunities which are going to be created in blue economy, right? Blue biotechnology, ocean biology, these are going to be new arenas for which we need human resources. So in this article background, I am coming up with a prelims question where you see that it was initiated, the Samudrayan mission, which is initiated in 2023 by Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways. I told about the Ministry of Earth Sciences. The main objective is to create a submarine that can dive to a depth of 6,000 meters in the deep ocean. India will become the third country to have successfully conducted deep ocean crewed mission, right? You know that there are many other countries which achieved this before. One of the important aims of the mission is to conduct exploration and pursue mining as per the permission given by its UN's International Seabed Authority. Out of these 4 statements, only 2 are right, and the answer is only 2 statements are correct, right? So this is very important article for preliminary examination. As I said, try to see these specifically, try to observe those elements like which ministry, what is the depth, and what are the technologies. All right. Coming to the next important article for today's news analysis is Akhora Agartala rail link to be inaugurated virtually by Prime Minister Modi and Sheikh Hasina today. The relevance is the rail link project for prelims, current events and national importance, for GS2, international relations, India and its neighborhood relations. So in this context, this article is very important, where you see Bangladesh and the northeast of India will re-establish connectivity after a gap of 75 years through Tripura with the inauguration of Akhora Agartala cross-border rail link project, right? So if you take the background, you know that Akhora Junction was historically used by people from northeast India to access East Pakistan, which was later became, Bangladesh market, to transit to Kolkata during 1950s and 1960s. However, the practice waned after 1971 war. The Akhora Agartala project was revived in 2010 when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh signed an agreement to rebuild the connection when Ms. Hasina visited Delhi. The inauguration by Indian PM virtually, where the Prime Minister of Bangladesh also participated. The Akhora Agartala rail link is unique as it directly connects Akhora in Bangladesh to a station in Agartala. So, intra-country. So, it is very important for few parameters in our interest. One, our Act East policy. So, it is very important as we have Bangladesh in our neighborhood, and it is very important for us to connect to our strategy of Act East policy, right? The rail link is being seen as a first step to connect Tripura to Kolkata through Bangladesh. So we don't have to transit around the chicken and go to Guwahati and reach Tripura. So we can directly reach Tripura now through Bangladesh. So it is in alignment with Act East policy and our interests in Southeast Asia. And it is very important that we Indians and the local traders can promote their trade, because of the direct access the railway link is providing. And Chittagong port, how business wise it is very important for us. It will promote growth to small scale industries around the border area, and it boosts tourism in northeast region from India, with this part of the India to that part of the India. It facilitates faster export and import of commodities and help specifically local producers, medium, small scale enterprises to market their products in and around. So, last but not least, the railway link will cut down the time. Before we used to go through Guwahati, now it will cut down the time between Kolkata and Agartala, 31 hours and 1500 kilometers to just 10 hours and 500 kilometers. So we are cutting down 21 hour of journey. So in this background, there are multiple connectivity projects which can be seen in the recent news. One such is between India and Sri Lanka, which started a ferry service between Nagapattinam and Kankeshanturai of Tamil Nadu, right? Sorry, Nagapattinam in Tamil Nadu and Kankeshanturai in Jaffna, which is in northern Sri Lanka. So the connectivity projects which are important for preliminary perspective, right? The other one is India-Myanmar, the Kaladan multimodal project, which is aimed to protect connectivity between India and Myanmar from ports on Indian Eastern Seaboard to Myanmar Sitwe port. So, and further to Northeast India through Myanmar using sea, river and road transport mode. That is the reason why we are calling it as Kaladan multimodal project. So in this we have railway link, we have road link, and we also have sea link. The project includes a waterway component, as I said, 158 kilometers on Kaladan river from Sitwe to Paletwa in Myanmar, and a road component of 109 kilometers from Paletwa to Zorinpoi in India-Myanmar border in Mizoram. So this multimodal project is having the rail link, the road link and the sea link. So Kaladan multimodal project, India, Sri Lanka, all this can be seen in a preliminary perspective. So in this background, I am coming up with a preliminary practice question. The region often mentioned in the news and the country: Chittagong Port, Bangladesh; Sitwe Port, Israel; Chabahar Port, Iran. So there are only two pairs which are right in this particular specific question. So geographical locations are often important for preliminary perspective. So these are the important news I've brought for you for today's session, for today's daily news analysis. It is important that the aspirants follow the content continuously and practice the questions which we have given for preliminary examination and mains examination. Thank you very much for watching and all the best. Thank you.